Good morning. Hi, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We're probably going to have some people trickle in. Looks like we've got a good number of channel partners here with us today. Just want to say thanks for attending and thank you in advance. I admire you for knowing so many different solutions. I'm here within my first month at Virtual Tech Gurus. I am a customer success manager, and Skip Tamke is with us this morning. He's going to be your presenter, and he is our service delivery manager. So thanks for attending, and I'll kick it over to Skip.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time this morning. So our purpose today is to go over our view of cyber resiliency, as well as our methods of meeting some of the challenges. So our agenda today is, what are the challenges we need to overcome? What are the best practices to assess, design, and enhance your cyber resilience posture? How do we stand against encryption and replication of data? Looking into cyber risk management, as well as monitoring, remediation, and observability within the cyber recovery space. So the common challenges that we see in the cyber resiliency space is observability, understanding where you stand, what's going on, how things look from a risk as well as protection standpoint, how your data protection is lined up against your industry standards for compliance, looking at privileged users, people who can do harm to your organization from a standpoint of server availability, data availability, access control, unpatched vulnerabilities, taking a look at how your servers as well as your other devices stand against known vulnerabilities. And then finally, how do we include server, storage, switch, cloud into the cyber resilience posture? If you have any questions, since we're a fairly small group, raise your hand and Fred or Katrina will stop me and we can address your question in real time. So the requirements of a data-driven strategy around cyber resilience as we see them today are predictive analytics, role-based dashboards, automated and scheduled collection and ingestion into an all-encompassing tool. And what that tool needs. The tool needs to have a customizable compliance rule set. Why is that important? That's really important because different customers and different partners have different rules around compliance. If you're in the Fed space, you've got to match the FedRAMP standard. If you're in a state and local space, you need to handle various issues of compliance. If you're in the financial services space, you have to do SEC as well as certain state rules. And if you're in, other regulated industries such as medical, you have to, conform to HIPAA requirements. You also need to be able to characterize your workloads. By workload characterization, we basically mean is what workloads go together to perform a function within the organization, and then what functions roll up to what departments roll up to what groups, and what groups roll up to what business units. So you need to be flexible enough to be able to characterize those workloads in various different ways so that you can look at them from various different views. And finally, you need to be able to have an inputs of flexible data sources. You need to look at your assets, your security, your devices, your data protection, your people, in order to get a holistic view of your cyber resilience stance. And finally, why do you need all that? One, we want to have a single pane of glass for all resiliency status and detail. You can look at things at the very highest level and then drill down either on workload, platform, group, user, depending upon the need to look at things. So you can provide a pane of glass view for everyone from a CIO all the way down to a server administrator to be able to understand what the posture looks like at various levels of granularity. Another element is efficiency. You need to be able to have a tool make some inferences for you based on either usage patterns or such things as, what servers look like, and understanding what has happened before and what is likely to happen. So what we typically utilize in one of our tool sets is an AI and machine learning algorithm that learns continually based on every data capture that we do to start seeing patterns and anomalies. And finally, you need to be able to interface to the ITSM stack. You need to understand where errors are occurring, what errors have been reported, what issues have been reported, and also you need to be able to, very easily set up changes in change windows so that you can use the tool to help automate your own functionality rather than having to do extracts and spreadsheets and screenshots and things like that. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, I will drive on to the next one. So, a lot of what we do is very much attached to the NIST cybersecurity framework. That is a fantastic framework. Yes, it's US based, but it's a good framework to start with. And you also look at the ISO standards as well. But NIST is a really good overall standard to be looking at in order to define your cybersecurity framework. And it really consists of 5 things: detect, respond, recover, identify, and protect. And that's in a, that looks like it's in a series of blocks that are standalone, but they're not. There really should be arrows between those blocks because it's a continuum. You're continually doing all of these things within the framework. And what does the framework encompass? Backup and recovery, otherwise known as data protection, security, antivirus, remote monitoring and management, ITSM processes and ticketing, governance reporting, and patching. So our IT management framework that we've incorporated within our Zenfer tool is, basically it's NIST compliant as well as ISO compliant as well. So, basically you've got the compute and storage and network environment. Then you have the tools that handle those environments. And then you have the ITSM tools that manage those environments. And that then reports through the NIST framework. And then the Zenfer tool basically takes feeds from and to each one of those elements of the stack and helps you do reporting and project management as well as interfacing back to those tools for such things as changes and problems in knowledge bases. So why is vulnerability management necessary? Well, it's super important, especially today. It prevents exploitation, it reduces risk, it protects our sensitive information, as well as maintains customer trust, adapting to threats, and provides cost savings. Because if you don't have an event, then you're not going to have to pay to save for that event. So basically paying a little upfront now saves a lot on the back end later if you do have an event that happens. And finally, maintaining compliance with your various regulatory authorities, be it SEC, FTC, HIPAA, as well as the various financial reporting agencies like, SEC, New York State Department of Financial Services, those kind of things.
I'm going to pipe in here for just a second, Skip. So it looks like we have like quite a few channel partners on the call with us today. So just to kind of position as far as virtual tech gurus and how these services would be offered, there's a couple of different ways. So we have all different types of customers where we sell to businesses directly or we sell through our channel partners. And so a lot of the resolution that we have to customer challenges is through partner. So essentially, the way that we foresee this can go a couple different ways on how it transacts through partner. That being said, we have directly some specific partners that we work with, but then also if you have a need for this for your customer, we really want to help you understand like what's in it for your customer and how do you present the value to them, and then also like how does that transact, right? Is it just like, do we add it as a SKU to your customer? Is that part of a package that you sell them with the migration maybe that you're already working within? These are conversations that we definitely want to have with you to help you position things to your customer in the right way. So just know that after this, we'll probably send you a few questions just to kind of see what made you come to the table today, what questions can we answer, but also how can we help you serve your customer better?
Yeah, also the key here is everything that we're talking about today is sold as a consulting engagement rather than as a software license. So, basically what happens is we get a customer interest. We work that interest together, and we work to put together a standardized statement of work in order to perform that function for them. That can be a one-time engagement. It can be a scheduled engagement that happens over the course of 6 months or a year, or it can be a hybrid where we're going in and doing an assessment first to establish a baseline, then the customer and you digest that, and then we work together to put together follow-ups, be it remediation, monitoring, management, or optimization, or migration. So what we're talking about here is an entry point into an entire plethora of services that we can jointly propose to customers. This is particularly around vulnerability management, but we've got others that are coming up as well. So here are the challenges that are faced by organizations that really don't have effective user risk management. And by user risk management, I am talking about knowledge and management of users that have the ability to do things that can do harm, at a server storage backup availability level. People who have admin rights or root or sudo or super user access, or who have the ability to configure switches and storage. Those are considered, elevated privilege users. So here are the challenges: lack of visibility into what they're doing. Organizations are vulnerable to data breaches jeopardizing sensitive information because you've got people who have a level of access that is higher than the average end user. And if their credentials get into the wrong hands, bad things can happen. Also gives you difficulty in adhering to industry regulations. There are certain industry regulations that manage who can see what and how. Offshore, onshore, critical identifying information, medical information, those kind of things. Identifying and mitigating insider threats. An insider threat is not just someone who can do harm. It's someone who has the ability to do elevated things in workloads or servers or storage or switches that may be out of date. We had an engagement with a customer recently where we identified for them over 1,000 users who were still working for the organization, but who no longer had the need to access classes of servers. They changed departments, they changed job functions, they moved between organizations within the same company. But because of the fact that they had server level or switch level access at an elevated state, they were a risk because they could still do things to elements of the organizational infrastructure and systems that they did no longer had the right to be to, even though they still had the access. And that particular company that we were working with went out and fixed the rights of those people, be it in Active Directory, external security, or even down at the server and switch level access lists. Another one is inefficient incident response. If you've got too many people who can do things and not enough people that understand what they can do, when you do have an incident, it's going to be harder to respond because you're going to have more and more people who can get in there and complicate matters. And finally, the inability to implement robust authentication methods. If you don't know who's accessing your systems and who should be accessing your systems, then you're not able to implement robust authentication methods because you don't know what you don't know. In this particular sense, what we do is we help you understand, what you don't know. And finally, all of these lead to higher operational costs because you're doing reactive measures rather than proactive measures. Because you don't understand going in what your user risk profile looks like, you're going to be spending more money in managing those risks. The idea here is that a little upfront work is able to help you satisfy your organizational requirements later on and reduce the overall cost because you're proactively managing user risk rather than managing it after there's already been a problem. Data protection. Data protection is not just backup. Data protection is backup. It is snapshots. It is replication. It is vaulting. It is offsite storage of records as well as electronic data. It basically, the whole purpose is to safeguard it, make sure it's unalterable, and not being able to be destroyed until absolutely necessary. And you've got to make sure that the strategies ensure confidentiality, integrity, and consistency. So the idea here for confidentiality is, it's limited to authorized entities and guarded disclosure, making sure that your data doesn't get into the wrong hands, be it physical, be it tapes, be it offshore copies, be it offsite copies, be it vaulted copies, be it pieces of paper. Every one of us has driven down the road and been behind an Iron Mountain truck. And, because I've been in that situation in the past, I've been concerned when I see an Iron Mountain truck broken down by the side of the road, that I'm wondering, where was that data going, and was there any loss of physical tapes because of that? You want to make sure your data has integrity. You want to make sure it's accurately and reliably presented, making sure that there's no unauthorized alteration or deletion. The idea here of having immutable copies of data and offsite one-way vaulted copies of data is very, very important. And making sure that that data is available, accessible to authorized users, and protected from disruptions and attacks. Be it via having multiple copies, be it having multiple rats, be it having the ability to do automated failover in a disaster recovery or a business recovery situation. Another thing is legal and regulatory requirements. There are many data practices that are governed by law. In the EU, you've got GDPR, you've got the California Consumer Privacy Act, you have HIPAA, you have Payment Card Industry Security Standard, you have SEC standards, you have various state financial services standards by either financial services or banking departments. Those are all very important to understand when you're looking at your data protection posture. And finally, it's essential for maintaining trust with your customers, complying with your legal requirements, and safeguarding sensitive information from the thousands of threats they face on a daily basis. You've got to make sure that you've got robust data protection measures and you stay updated and keep updated with the evolving regulatory requirements. I just found out about a new one last week, with a regulatory requirement that's coming into effect in 2025 that we need to work with our financial services customers on. And the whole idea here with all of these items that I'm talking about is upfront knowledge, not worrying about it after something has occurred, but taking the time and the effort to look at your information and your access and your people and your data upfront, and having a thorough understanding of where you stand from a cyber resilience posture with respect to all of your servers, your storage, your data, as well as anything that's residing either in cloud or in a hybrid cloud environment.
I
So
think,
what is our, okay, go ahead.
like I was
Katrina.
gonna say, I think too, it's helpful to maybe mention like the class of customers that potentially, partners would be serving, right? So if we're talking small, medium business, something to consider is that oftentimes they may have like a third party that they're utilizing for backup services, right? And just maybe asking those questions in the front end, understanding that, and then being able to be more of a consultative approach to your end customer, whether they're coming to you for switches or coming to you for services, or maybe that's an upsell for physical partner. Would make sense. And I think we see success in this particular space more with small, medium business, and even into a little bit of the commercial space, just depending on what happened in lieu of COVID and a decrease in IT spend for actual resources of employees, and also just the size of the business and what they can afford all up in the IT budget.
Sure. To jump on what Katrina just said, we've recently onboarded a new customer into our managed services team, who is an SMB. It's a small courier service that works out of the Southwest. And the interesting thing that we onboarded them is they did have an existing IT manager who passed away. So it's one of those people issues where this guy had all the organizational knowledge and the tribal knowledge in his head, and he had an unfortunate event happen and he passed away, and the company was left high and dry. But what was interesting is when we got into there and we started onboarding the customer, first thing we looked at was user access, and we found that the user access was all over the place. There was too much. There was no control over user access. There was no control over what they could install or deinstall or do. So anybody that walked in who had a valid username could go in and basically take down everything. then next step was we looked at their data protection scenarios. And what we found out that yes, they were subscribed to a cloud backup service, but they were overriding their backups every day. So if they had been affected by a data loss or a loss of access to data that occurred that occurred 24 hours ago, their backup was hosed as well. And they would be unable to go back to that data beforehand. And they'd have to look to use old data that they happen to have on a hard drive that they clone once a month. So immediately we went in and we set up versioning on backups, and we made sure that they have, a valid weekly backup and they have a valid monthly backup. And we made sure that their backups are recoverable by doing disaster recovery tests with them. So that's something with smaller customers that it's really important to look at, even in a situation where it's a really small customer that may have 2 or 3 servers and 14 or 15 workstations and 20 or 30 users. It's very important to treat the small customers with the same level of attention you give to the big customers. So our solution is data-driven consulting driven by a tool that we call Zenfra. Zenfra is an infrastructure analysis consulting tool that we utilize that gathers data from a bunch of various inputs, all various cloud providers, all servers, all storage, all network switches, all storage switches. Um, Pulls in from customers' CMDBs, pulls in from their HR and security systems, so that we have a holistic view of everything that is going on inside of a customer that could affect their cyber resiliency posture. And the data is captured 2 different ways. When we have a situation where we're able to install a VM into a customer environment, we can capture data automatically via APIs to cloud as well as on-prem resources. If we're in a situation where the customer does not want us to stand up a VM, or they're too small and don't have a virtual infrastructure for us to do anything with, we can actually run collection scripts that we've worked on that capture the data for us and can import it into our tool. Our tool, by the way, is cloud-based. It runs in AWS, and it's multi-region. So if we need to do anything region locked, we can deal with that. We can deal with that as well. Here's basically the way the ingestion works. Data is uploaded or collected. It's added to our system queue, and it's then parsed by our AI engine. The engine then provides the output to our data store, which we store in a data lake. And then the user logs in and works on what we call Zenpacks. A Zenpack is basically a path through our software. There's a Zenpack for cyber recovery. There's a Zenpack for user access. There's a Zenpack for vulnerability analysis. There's a Zenpack for observability. There's a Zenpack for small and medium business managed services, sort of like an MSP Zenpack. And there are others as well around backup and recovery, as well as there's some custom data Zenpacks in there. Then we have analytics that come out of the Zenpack, and then those analytics are shared with one of our consultants, and our consultants looks at the data, looking for anomalies, looking for problems, looking for trends. And we're able to develop very, very quickly an overall view of what the organization looks like from a data perspective. So everything with us is looking at the customer's data, rather than not looking at data below metadata. One of the things we say, it's data-driven consulting. We don't require any look at what actually is contained in data sets. All we need to look at is operating systems, logs, and those kind of things, rather than looking deeper into the data. So we don't want to look at the data. We truthfully don't care what's in there. What we care about is, how it's accessed, how it's backed up, who can control it, all that kind of information. And so one of the things is we do an automated asset discovery and visibility. Once we've gathered all the data, we then have the ability to present it to you and to your customer in various different ways. We can look at a server view, we can look at an application view, we can look at an application dependency view, we can look at vulnerabilities, we can look at data recovery standards, and everything we've got in there. And this is just a sample of some of the reports that we can offer. Once you have an opportunity that you think about we would want to be involved in with you, then we can get into which path the customer needs to go down, how we would want to get there, what it would look like from that standpoint. And the interesting thing about a consulting engagement that we do based on our data-driven consulting is that it is not your typical big four, heavy tool cost, heavy time investment assessment. Our assessments are typically very quick because we work based on data, and the only interviews we do of users in an organization is to discuss anomalies and discrepancies that we see, as well as our findings. So, where a typical Big Four or, Tata, TCS type engagement would take 4 months to complete, we can do a point in time engagement, beginning to end within 2 to 3 weeks, simply because we're able to very quickly gather the data, and we let the data speak for itself, and we speak to the user about anomalies in business practices and RPO and RTO and things like that, rather than doing extensive, back and forth about what is your business, how do you do what, these kind of things. We let the data speak for itself, and then we use the data to engender discussions with the customer. This is just another one of our views. This is a server view of vulnerabilities. So our data-driven consulting that we utilize using Zenfra, basically has a whole bunch of different benefits. Increased consulting efficiency in project management, reduction in time and cost, building quick trust from customers and credibility and reputation, greater insights, transparency, and accuracy, because we're talking to them about something they know. We're talking to them about their data and how they utilize their data. We have the ability to prioritize and improve decision making. When we see the anomalies, we talk to anomalies and discrepancies rather than talking to every line item of detail. And finally, we reduce the insecurity that a customer has around, am I vulnerable? Can I recover? Is my RTO correct? Am I meeting my compliance standards? And so it really is a great way of quickly establishing your ability with the customer to be the trusted advisor. We support you in you being the trusted advisor. We give you the ammunition and the method to become the trusted advisor. And that way you can go wider and deeper into a customer and be able to provide more value to them. That is, we're right at the half-hour mark, so this is exactly where I wanted to be. I'd like to thank you guys for your time, and I'd like to open it up for questions and comments if you would like to.
I think we'll probably send out a survey here at the end, just to kind of share, maybe openly, you can give us your feedback on kind of what you're receiving, but then also if there's additional information or you want to dig deeper, or maybe see how this would benefit your end customer, how we can help convey that in a lighter message for you. So you can be a little bit more transactionary or more consultative with your customer. We can kind of dig into that deeper in another session.
Have we enabled microphones?
I think, Fred, did you allow for anyone to raise their hand or take them off mute?
I think we may have lost Fred. Oh, there's Fred.
Yeah, I haven't muted.
Okay, great. Let's, if you guys don't mind, go around the room. Rob, since I know you, I'll ask you the first question. Anything that you had questions about or need further info on? Okay, we'll take that as a no. Patrick, Jackson, Rabishan, Lorenda, any idea, or Victor, anything from you guys?
I'm all set. Thank you for your time so far.
Great, thank you. So so the next steps with this is we will be having further webinars to go deeper into each of the items that we spoke about here. But the idea here is to give you guys in the channel community, in the SI community, the ability to understand at least a 10,000 foot view what our offerings are relative to cyber resilience, as well as how we can help you drill into the customers more deeply. Katrina and Fred are going to reach out to you guys and to see if we will be able to join with us in the path to doing this, and we can jointly work to put together sales campaigns, informational campaigns. If you guys want to use branded webinars or something like that, we can definitely talk about doing that. So basically the idea here is to make your jobs easier in selling more advanced services to your customer around cyber resilience, as well as everything else we offer, and to enable you to understand it when you're talking to your customers and saying, oh yeah, I just saw a webinar about that. Let me talk to my partner and see if we can get back to you and figure something out. Fred, Katrina, anything to add?
No, I think I'll work this into maybe just a survey that kind of comes out after. We'll try to keep it short, maybe 5 to 7 questions, just to kind of see if there's greater engagement. I mean, I think since we're not directly transacting with anyone outside of our channel partners or customers that we already have, some of that is OEMs for us. It's helpful for us to know what you see trending versus what we're seeing trending, like amongst social media within tech blogs, and just kind of the all up ask from independent reach outs to us. So like cyber resiliency is definitely a topic that we get a lot of requests on. But if there's something that you're seeing pattern in, just, we really want to identify that so that we can really give you detailed information so that you can carry to your customers and make that portion of it a little bit more simple. That's all.
Well, in that case, if there's no further questions, give you guys back some time in your day. And I want to thank you for joining today. Looking forward to hearing some feedback if you thought this was useful, if you think you'd like to go deeper, or basically any feedback at all. And we would love to hear from our audience so that we can tune it and make it better for the next one.
Thanks, Skip.
Thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks everybody.
Have a great one.